I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands.
Welcome to Build an Iconic Life podcast. I'm your host, Chris Whitehead, and this podcast is dedicated to help you build a life with zero regrets by focusing on how you have everything you need to stand up, stand out, and live life on your terms. Let's dive right in. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Build an Iconic Life. I'm here with Melissa Gray. She owns the Law Spot, and as we were really getting to know one another, I learned that she worked for a really successful law firm, became a partner, and then did the craziest thing on earth ever. She said, no, I don't want all that money. I'm going to go start my own business. And so I have to get on the camera with her. I have to have a conversation with her because I'm wild and crazy like that too. So Melissa, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for taking the time. And I want to ask you a question.
Please.
Why on earth did you, after you finally made it, decide to take the one step back or the two steps back? You must believe there is a propulsion forward. So tell everybody about that.
I do, and really, it all came down to me wanting to build something of my own. Like it was something else to be plugged into an environment where it was already made for you. But the idea of creating something that was from scratch, that had my stamp on it, was always in the back of my mind. And as a baby lawyer, I never wanted to have my own firm. I thought that was scary. I thought, it's a lot of responsibility, but the more higher up I got into practice and the more behind the scenes I saw in operations, the more I was like, this isn't rocket science. If they can do it, I can do it. And, I've done hard things. This is not something that I cannot figure out. And as long as I'm true to myself and my clients, that will see me through. And if I don't know something, I can hire somebody. I can learn how to do it. Like, this is all figure outable.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who are less smart, less driven, less talented than me have done it. So there's no reason why I should be afraid to do it. Now, is the timing ever perfect? No, I have 3 young kids. And that was sort of, I was in baby making mode for a while. So during my career building years, that was always pretty daunting because as a mom, you're pulled in different directions at different points in your life. And once my youngest turned 1, which seems very young, but he got a little more independent, and I had the support of my family and the people that needed to be around me in order to make that happen were in place. And so I ripped the Band-Aid off, and that's when I went for it.
Yeah, you jumped from a pond into the ocean.
That's right.
Well, let me ask you this, because I got 2 questions, but I want to start with this one. What is it that differentiates you? What is it that you're doing now that you wanted to do then, but decided I needed to do it on my own?
Gosh, I have worked for, I've worked for a lot of people, and I like to say that I want to get away from the crusty old white man model, which is, when people think about lawyers, they think about someone who's unapproachable, who's very stoic, who doesn't necessarily relate to them. And that's not the case. Like, if you have a good relationship with an attorney from the beginning, they really do become your strategic partner. And my favorite relationships, my favorite clients are those that I nurtured at the beginning and that I have watched grow. And to be able to have that relationship with them is extremely rewarding for me. So my vision for the Law Spot is to have a community of clients and professionals that can really serve as a partner to these businesses, to these entrepreneurs in the major buckets of their life where they might need strategic advice, and to start that early as opposed to always being in a reactive capacity.
Yeah, crisis mode.
Yeah, which is when most people encounter a lawyer, when they're having problems, and then They don't like what they have to say because there's not much we can do to fix it once you've already gone down the path. But if you trust someone enough to invest a little bit of time and energy at the onset of your business plan, or when you get married, or like whatever that is for you, where you feel like you can educate yourself to avoid problems, that's when you want to get in front of people, because it can really make their lives better. Like, we actually, lawyers help people. Like, that's our whole job. And we don't have that reputation necessarily. We cost money, but it's seeing the value before you need the service,
Well,
and putting that message out there.
who is the ideal person for you to help then? Like, because of the value that you're bringing, and especially you talk about early, is this business owners? Is this anybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, well, and primarily business owners, and people. I do have partly a part of estate planning that I do with. It's sort of a business component, right? Succession planning and that sort of thing. But getting in front of people that are considering starting a business, that are in the beginning stages, but also those that want to sell their business at the end, getting them ready for that, cleaning up what they haven't addressed internally, because you can be really successful and have no clue what you're doing if the stars align and that's happening for you, which is wonderful. But what are you selling? Have you trademarked your assets? Do you have any copyrights? Do you have any patents? What's the value of that business if you don't have your operating procedures in place? What are your contracts with your independent contractors, your staff? Like, you've got to have your ship in order to get the highest price for what you've built, and we can really help you do that. So I am focused on building resources for entrepreneurs that live in the universe that they can benefit from, and they can learn to know, like, and trust me, like, in the ether. And then when they're ready, they can jump on board. But to your point, it's for me, it's not about the billable hour. I want to create things that are helpful and bring value. And then the clients will come. I know they will. And I know that I can help them. And it's just making sure that they can find me, and when they're ready to find me, that they know how to do that.
So you've been in business now 6 months.
I know. Well, yes, practicing a long time. The Law Spot has been was birthed 6 months ago. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's got to start somewhere.
That's right.
Trust me, you're starting a lot better off than I did when I was 24 years old. I literally quit my job and said, I think I want to do this. And I remember my wife looked at me and she said, well, maybe you should stay on part-time. And I said, it's too late. I've already left. And I had no game plan. I was the person at 24 years old that needed somebody like you in my life. With that being said, what is the craziest aha or mistake moment that you've had so far as a business owner? And not all of them, just the craziest one that you were like, I never would have thought that had to be done, or I never thought I would be in that situation. Tell us a story.
I had a chance to look under the hood because I was involved in the operation, so that was really helpful. So day one, I got a bookkeeper. Day one, I had a CRM. Day one, like, I didn't wait until I had the money or the time or the reason. Like, I was literally like, nope, this is going to pay for itself with the first client that I get, right? So I invested. I think the biggest aha moment for me was like, you got to slow down eventually, because you can't get every single thing that you need. And really, I think that saying no is really hard in the beginning stages, because you want to say yes to everything. You think you can see the value, and you don't know sort of what's going to pay off, what's not going to pay off in terms of allocating your time, which is finite, and having 3 kids and a husband and all the things. You want to be more thoughtful about how you spend your time. And that was something, I think, in the first 6 months, I just said yes to everything, and that was fine. I learned a lot from that, though. And I think this year for me is more about focus and really being intentional about how I use that time.
So I'd mentioned to you that I've written a book, and I'm going to make sure you get a copy of it. I literally have a chapter that no is a complete sentence. And
Yep.
I was educated by a coach about that because I was asking a question. How do I respond to this person who's trying to sell me this thing? And they're kind of connected inside of one of my arenas, and I feel obligated. And I was just laying out the whole guilt trip that I was on. And I remember him saying over the phone, Chris, no is a complete sentence. And that's all he said. It's like, just let that sink in. And I went back to her, and this is all in DMs, but I went back to her and I just said, no, thank you. And I left it alone. I was like, look, I didn't die. Look, she doesn't hate me. Look, everything's okay. Um, and part of that as an entrepreneur or business owner is it can be tough to get clients at first. It can be tough so you're saying yes to everything. What also made me averse to saying no to anything because I felt bad not
Yes.
helping people. But I realized that there's a hierarchy to everything. And I've had this conversation, especially as Robin and I've grown more businesses, but not everybody deserves my time. And the truth is, as a business owner, I'm here to make profit. I'm not here to babysit other people. I'm not here to necessarily level people up. If you're in the remodeling company, sure, we have resources that'll make you a better contractor or a better worker. But that doesn't mean I have to go rescue you from jail. That doesn't mean I have to buy your wife a car. That doesn't mean. And so I was becoming that kind of person. And Robin said, hey, remember something. When do we get paid? When do we, and so it's like, oh, there's so many lessons in entrepreneurship that you just, until you run into them, you've never really had to think about them because usually you're on the other end of that going, hey, I've given my time, I've given my effort, give me the promised pay for what we're doing. And it really is a mindset shift. And, you know, the truth is, Melissa, 95% don't make it after 5 years. That's not because it can't be done. Business is actually, like you said, it's pretty simple. It's not easy. It's pretty simple.
Yes.
But if we don't give ourselves, number one, the right resources, we can burn out cash flow. And then the next part is this mindset shift. What you were talking about is like, I have to approach situations now as an asset producing individual. I'm a productive person now, not a consumer. And it's tough. It's tough because you don't really know if you say yes or you say no, which one was the right answer. You just have to deal with the consequence of whichever one it is.
Yeah. And I think that's where, you know, having some coaches, having some mentors in your life is super important. I I think there's a lot of value in sort of looking at what other people do to an extent, and then
Yeah.
trusting your gut and learning from your mistakes if you make the wrong call. So there's been some of that, even in the things that I've tried, some of the funnels that I've made for products and contract reviews, like, and no one signed up. It's like, okay, well, I learned how to build it. That
Mm-hmm.
was helpful,
Mm-hmm.
and I can use that the next time. But uh, those skills and paying your dues on that front is never a waste of time. But I definitely think that I need to be more strategic in 2024. So
I just finished a book by Elon Musk, or it's not by him, it's a biography of him. And he literally builds rocket ships for hundreds of millions of dollars just to fly them for 3 minutes to blow them up over the ocean to collect data. And he doesn't get angry at that
yeah.
because he's failing forward fast. And the idea of it's, again, this is that mindset of being a producer. It's, I don't have time to sit back and cry over what didn't work. I have to go figure out what will work. And for my personality type, have you ever taken the Colby assessment?
No.
Okay, I'll talk about it to you offline sometime. But
Okay.
it shows you your motivators. I'm something called a quick start. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm a 9, which means if I hear a very good idea, I don't really talk to anybody about it. I just go do it. That has led to a lot of failure. And the cool thing is, and why I read the books, because here's the wealthiest man on earth failing, 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 failing. But when he wins, his vision is so big that it wins on a grand scale. And then he literally reinvests it all back in so that he can create the next dream. And to me, that's someone worth watching, not because of how much money he makes, but because of the mindset of, I'm okay. It's not failure unless I quit. It's never going to be failure unless I quit. And this imposter syndrome that entrepreneurs feel, like you don't, I don't think you fake it till you make it. I think you face it till you make it is the best way, because I did the other and I got horrible clients out of it because I was out of integrity. So guess who is going to hire me? People that are out of integrity. And as I learned how to hold myself in that space, it allowed me to say no. And it also allowed me to say yes. And boy, did you say something I think is so important. I started listening to my gut because I could trust me. I knew I was integrity. I don't care if you know, I know. And now I can start going, hey, I'm going to fill my head full of information, but at the end of the day, I've got to trust this is, yeah. And that's what I love about entrepreneurship, because when you get it right, it is the best feeling on earth. And it doesn't matter whether you're a jerk or whether you're a good person, you will get a result and it'll make you feel the exact same way. Like, hey man, I can do this. And I'm proud of you for doing it. I'm proud of you, especially being in the law area, right? That's something that often just people either do this, or it almost sometimes feel like lawyers do that too. They're very stoic, right? But you do webinars like monthly.
Mm-hmm.
You're educating people, whether they show up to them or not. I can't tell you, Melissa, the first time I ever did a webinar, the video didn't work and 30 some people were on there, and I was cold drip sweating, and I
Oh
was
no.
breathing heavy into the microphone because I was watching 32, 31, 29, 27. Then my partner at the time, he was trusting me. He's like, Chris, just pull the plug. Eventually, the only two people who were left on there were my mom and my mentor. And I just felt like such a failure. But here we are now. I did a sales webinar 2 years ago, and made $158,000 in 2 hours, you know? So if
There
you
you
just,
go.
and I'm not bragging, I'm not trying to impress anybody.
Oh,
I'm just saying, number one, when that happened, I was like, oh, I didn't know I could do that. But what if I quit? What if I quit? And
yeah.
so you're choosing to do something that naturally you will have to become a better version of who you are in order to get the results that you want. And that is my mission on earth. Like, all of us elevate. What are some of the things you do in the webinars? Like, you don't charge people for them, right?
I do not.
Okay.
No. So I have three main webinars that I have done so far. One is the business basics class, essentially teaching people about choosing the right entity type,
Uh-huh.
and having the end in mind before you choose what kind of entity, because it matters. The main contracts that you want to consider having in place depending on what business you're in.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about insurance and then some IP related issues. So as you're growing your business, as you're choosing your brand name and the assets, how you should think about them in terms of their value over time, and how to just be present and have those legal considerations as you grow from the very first moment you have this idea in your mind. Because there's nothing worse than seeing an entrepreneur come to me, when they're a few years down the road with some success, and someone's suing them because they chose a brand name that's already taken for the same product, or they don't have a contract with this vendor that just screwed them out of a huge order, or those are things that are preventable, mitigating risks, and so that's the first webinar. And I think that one it's more broad level, but it's really for those people that are considering starting, and just to educate them. The second one is more on what my primary focus of my practice over the last 10 years has been, which is trademarks and why they're important, why you need them, what they can do for you, choosing a strong mark from the beginning, and then the process for registering that mark. And then the third one is the estate planning portion, which comes up in the business context, and just other moms, the people in my community that don't think about, they don't want to think about dying. I mean, it's not a
Sure.
nice topic, but it's also something that I'm still in my 30s. I'm in my late 30s. I have 3 children, and admittedly, I didn't get a will. I didn't have one until I was like 35. And it's nothing to be embarrassed about, but people don't want to be proactive. It's like life insurance. They don't want to think they're going to die. They don't want to talk about
Right.
it. But the reality is, uh, those those next level conversations with your family are important to think about. And then when you're ready, I'll be here. And just knowing that there's resources available to you and what that might look like is the goal of the webinar, and just educating people on why they're important and why not to put them off forever.
Speaking to something you said, the name of our remodeling company is New England Custom Remodeling, right? Well, it was formerly known as Granite State Contracting, except Chris actually started spending money in doing geofencing and learning how to pay for leads and doing SEO, and hired companies, and we became very well known. We started getting phone calls all the time. I guess somebody named Granite State General Contractor started getting those calls too, asking for Chris. So I got a cease and desist letter one day. And that's when I actually met my business lawyer to speak to another point that you made. I would have loved to have known this ahead of time, because I spent 6 figures building this marketing channel up. And I called him and I said, hey, it's not fair. I've done all the marketing. I know he's been around for a while, but and he goes, Chris, he started his business in 2002. I said, can we fight it? He goes, how much money do you want to spend? And I said, can you just tell me the real answer? He goes, no. What you need to do, shut the business down, go get another name. And it was a very valuable lesson that would have not cost me 6 figures, because guess what I had to do? Start the whole process over again with a whole new name. I got the EIN. The state said it was just fine for me to have that name because it was not the exact same name, but it was so close to someone else's that when it became viable, you're out. And you're so right. It costs nothing to talk to a business lawyer for the result, but that's if you're serious. Are you serious about building a long-term business, or are you just playing around? And I think a lot of people are just playing around, and I don't think entrepreneurship is something to just play around with. You can mess your life up pretty good playing around. And I'm grateful that you're out there taking the time to educate people, and you're not a scary person while you're doing it, because a lot of lawyers also can talk in ways that clients have a hard time understanding.
Yeah,
And
that's so
and
true.
and it sounds like not only are you going through the experience, which are giving you lots of ahas, I'm sure, but at the same time, you are an entrepreneur, so you can speak to the things that will give them the most likely chance to win. And
Yeah.
yeah, there's just not enough of that, especially of people of integrity doing it. So I'm glad that you're doing it.
And I think some of that comes from my time in a large company. I work. Every decision from a legal standpoint that I made had the business in mind. So while the reputation of the legal department, used to be the office of the no,
Mhm.
can we do this? No, you're violating the law. It's really more, how can we get this done? And my advice isn't always necessarily legal advice. You tell me you want to do something, I'm like, is that smart? And I tell you the risks and you still want to, then we're going to figure out a way to do it in a way that mitigates problems, or we're going to find a different solution. But if it's a hard no, then I'm going to tell you, and there's going to be a reason for it. But it's more of a back and forth. It's not just my way or no way. And that's where having that rapport with somebody early on, so they know your vision, what your end goal is. Because if you say my end goal is X, and I say, and you tell me how you want to get there, and I say, no, that's illegal, but we can get there this way, and you still get to your end goal, it's helpful to know what the end goal is. So that in-house experience really fostered some of that as well.
So you live in Dallas, Texas, right?
I do.
All right. So does that mean you can only help people in the state of Texas, or can you help people all over the country?
So on the trademark side, I can help people all over the country because it involves federal law. So anywhere in the U.S., I can help. And on the estate planning and business side, I'm actually, I took 2 bar exams, so I'm licensed in both Texas and Florida, and can help people in both of those
Do you have
states.
to take the bar exam for each state you want to practice in?
Typically, no, but I moved to Texas. My husband is from here, so they don't have reciprocity with Florida. So I had to sit for 2 exams in 2 years. Yay! It was super fun.
Yeah, no. I wouldn't have wanted to do it once. I have one of our friends from an old group that I used to coach in. She's from New York, and she worked Wall Street as a lawyer, the whole thing. And she wanted to also get out of the rat race. She's become a coach and written books and social media influencer and everything. But she was pregnant when she was taking the bar exam, and she and her husband at the time owned 2 barbershops.
Wow.
And she said it almost made her go over the edge.
I was gonna say it
Um,
almost broke you, poor girl.
yeah, it's hard. So I want to kind of wrap everything up. Um, I've got one question after this that I want to ask, but first, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you really think, hey, I want to share this with your audience?
Yeah, I think so. Actually, one of my, you know, goals for servicing my clients and doing so in a way that doesn't necessarily follow the traditional model is implementing technology. And I think that that's important to note just because that's the way of the world. But old school law firms are so averse to change that that's what a lot of the billable hour goes to is inefficiency. So
Oh,
that is something that I think will change, but it will be slow to change. And one of the benefits of having a blank slate was the ability to implement all of those amazing tools that increase efficiency from day one. So that's a core value of mine to pass that value on to the people I serve, and it's just going to continue with the implementation of AI into things and all of those amazing technologies that are coming through with ChatGPT and everything else. It's just
mhm.
those tools are lawyers are kind of scared of them, and scared to implement them.
You were saying you want to integrate technology into lawyering because a lot of firms, especially the really big ones, are extremely inefficient, and the client's paying for that inefficiency. I completely understand that. My third core value is innovation, right?
Yeah,
So
love
so
it.
I get it. Um, what are some of the other things that you're hoping to bring into what you're doing that you feel is different?
Gosh, just accessibility. Making evergreen content and focusing on content. I think lawyers are afraid to get on camera sometimes and to give the value that I plan to give to my clients. So I'm going to keep that up, and I'm going to share as much as they'll hear from me. So.
When you first started getting on camera, were you nervous?
Yes, it was really uncomfortable, and I think at the end of the day, I just decided who gives a shit.
Yeah,
Sorry to drop
no,
that,
you're
but
fine.
who cares? No one cares. And do I look at other people and think she shouldn't be on camera? No, I don't. So the people that I resonate with are not going to care.
Right.
They're either going to listen or they're not. So you just one day it just didn't matter. And honestly, it just helped to rip off the band-aid. I paid for a little seminar where I did content creation with someone in Dallas. So I invested a little bit like in the outcome of that, and that helped just push me along. And then it just kept going from there.
When my first video was 2009, I think it was 2.5 minutes long. It's still on YouTube with 6 views.
I'm going to watch it.
No, you're not.
Yes.
And, but as I started to get more and more into it, 2011, 2012, it would take me 4 hours to make a 4-minute video.
Yeah.
All the editing, trying to read teleprompters, trying to be perfect. And what I eventually got to was I actually operate better with no script, no nothing, all natural, be me. When I get on stages, I never have a script. And I found that vulnerability and authenticity with packing in knowledge on the back end, you somehow synthesize it and it comes out if you trust the process. And it's another thing with lawyers. A lot of times you can sit with a lawyer and you're like, dude, you need some creamer because you are dry. Like it's woo. And so the ability to learn, and for me, I believe every entrepreneur should be doing a podcast. I mean, why would you not add value and show people what your skills are, invite other people on and make them look good and build a true circle of friends that can support one another? But you taking the time to bring some personality to subject matters that aren't very easy sometimes to deal with or talk about, or quite honestly, who wants to pay for HR? And who wants to pay for lawyers? Like nobody wants to,
No.
but I
Well,
tell you what, you definitely don't want to pay for the consequence of not listening to someone who knows what needs to be done. And I'm really grateful that you're doing it. Okay, last question. Where's the best place for people to find you? If they want to connect with you, if they want to learn more about your services, what's the best way?
So my website is thelawspot.com, and I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And
As
you can look
Melissa
up.
Gray, or is the Law Spot?
It's at the Law Spot, and the website actually has a way for you to book a call with me, and it has access to all the blogs and resources that we're talking about. So,
And I'm sure you give the first calls a complimentary, like,
I do.
hey, okay, awesome. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you so much. This was fun.
Congratulations on taking the big plunge.
It is a plunge. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been
And
it's an adventure. It's going to keep going.
I'm telling you, you're going to look back 10 and 20 years from now, and you're going to be like, I can't believe I was that crazy to do it. And I'm so grateful that I never quit on me. And so as long as you just keep innovating and keep growing and keep building your network and keep talking to people and offering the value, I have no doubt that you're going to absolutely crush it. So thank you for being on the show, Melissa.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. See you, everybody. Take care.
I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands. Strong like a tree. There's roots where I stand.
Hey, friend, if you enjoyed listening to this podcast, please leave a review and subscribe to catch future casts. If you really enjoyed this episode, make sure you share it so others can benefit from it as well. I'll see you in the trenches.
Try to catch me howling at the moon.